Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey.
This is a horror podcast in which two horror fans, plus one this week, discuss all things horror, including news, recent watches, horror collectibles, and more.
I am one of your eyeball gouging co-hosts. I am Casey.
And I'm Sam.
And
let's get screaming.
Sam, you gave a little tease there. You said we're not alone. Who do we got joining us?
As always, no, I'm just kidding. Tad is with us today. Tad Good from Attack of the Killer podcast, the director of Snake Alley Film Festival. He's in the basement. This is the first time you've been in the basement, correct, Tad?
Yeah, officially on this one. But I almost was actually in my own basement because of weather. And my background would have been way cooler, but the internet down there is spotty. So I'm up in my normal recording area.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, keep us posted if you have to run to the basement. You know, we'll accommodate.
I think we're good now. I think it's passed. So
if any maggots start bursting through your window at any point during the show, like you need to get downstairs as fast.
Yeah.
A special. I'm just gonna have that as like a cool effect, for the show. Nikki's right off camera with a big fan throwing maggots into it.
Throwing maggots.
Yeah. So, Tad, how have you been? What is going on in your world? How is Attack of the Killer podcast? What is Attack of the Killer podcast if people haven't been listening to this show until now and don't know?
Well, we all share a podcast network, the Prescribed Film Podcast Network, and we're sort of like you guys. It's just four guys sitting around talking about horror movies. We don't have the cool video intro like that. I mean, that's so cool. But we recently welcomed former co-host Brian Clark back to the show as a permanent host again. He took a break for writing, and he's still doing that, but it's great to have him back. But yeah, it's just four friends talking horror movies. We've been actually really sort of making our listeners angry this last 2 months because we've been doing color episodes. It started as sort of like a joke, and then the more angry people got, it fueled Mike, the host, to continue it. And we've been doing some trickery with it. We did the black episode, but it actually was like black cinema, like African American. Then we did
nice
yellow, but it was actually giallo. But our upcoming episode, I can sort of give some spoilers. We're ending the rainbows because of something major that happened recently, and we're doing some Corman episodes.
Nice. A bunch of Corman episodes then.
A few.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't narrow it down to one because he's got over 200 films that he's produced or directed, and
he made a lot of stuff in his 98 years.
A lot. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, I have not caught up on the yellow episode yet. So I was confused about that one because when you guys announced what 3 movies it was, I was like, yellow's not in any of those. And
there's
makes more sense that there's giallo.
Yeah, there's actually like a one with blue in the title, which I think Mike is just trolling at that point.
Yeah.
A giallo with blue in the title on the yellow episode. No wonder people are confused. But
right.
I can assure you guys we're done at least for the next 2 episodes. Are not going to be color. I can't promise we won't go back to it, but.
I can't wait for the magenta episode. That's going to be a banger.
Yeah.
I was going to say, someone did dare Mike for a pink episode, and if you dare Mike, he usually takes the bait. So stop doing that, please.
There are a few pink horror movies.
Yeah, I was going to say, pink might be an easier one to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
man, that's cool.
Mike better do it. You guys better do a pink episode. That one would be fun.
Jump right back into the colors.
Yep. Yeah. Right after. Here's a challenge. Do a Corman pink episode.
You probably could. I mean, you
probably could.
Yeah. Probably no problem. You could probably do 2 because the man just created so much.
Right. Awesome.
Well, on this episode, we'll talk Corman a little bit later on in the show when we get to some of the news pieces we have to talk about for this last couple weeks in horror. But the big topic for this episode we're taking things to hell in this episode. No, not Jason Goes to Hell. We're not doing that because why would we? But we're talking The Gates of Hell, the Lucio Fulci unofficial trilogy. We are talking City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and House by the Cemetery. Tad, we kind of gave you a list. This is one of the titles. I think we kind of made you do this after all. Was like, hey, we can finally do the Fulci episode because someone wants to do it with us. But Lucio Fulci, what's your history with Fulci, and what's your history, I guess, with these three movies specifically?
I guess sort of late to them in my horror background. I got into horror way too young, and then it felt like it's like a stepping stone of like you get to the big ones, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, all those, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and then you have to keep expanding to find more stuff. And I think Fulci was like actually discovered him like after Argento, and like the Giallo stuff sort of led to Fulci, and I discovered more of the Zombie 2, that Fulci, and then got into these movies. The Beyond was my first one, and it was actually because Tarantino, like, he re-released it in theaters under his, like, I think it was like Rolling Thunder, Grindhouse type releasing before he owned the New Beverly, and it got put back out in theaters for one of its anniversaries. And I didn't get to see it in the theater that time, but it just was like making headlines. I'm like, I got to check this out. Tarantino thinks it's cool. And I loved it. And I have seen The Beyond. I got to see The Beyond not in a theater, in a bar, the composer's cut with Fabio Frizzi performing with his band, the whole score live. Wow.
That's awesome.
And that was awesome. That was 2019, a world before a pandemic, where you could just stand next to people in a packed bar. But it was a surreal experience. In the Quad Cities, like this little tiny hole in the wall bar. They had a pull down screen like in elementary school above, and his like 9-piece band played on like the floor of this bar, and everybody was just like sitting around talking. And I'm like, this fucking Fabio Frizzi in front of us, guys. Like, shut up and worship at his feet. Like, this is incredible. and I have to give Fabio huge credit because we sort of talked a little bit about this before we hit record. This guy, he made a composer's cut, and basically this dude just like cut out the story, and if there is any story, and just put in like the gnarliest scenes from The Beyond, so it's short, and he plays the music to it, and it's like a rock concert with gnarly visuals. And it's like, this is awesome. Like, this is what I want. Like, I got him to sign my Beyond poster. I got a t-shirt. I realized before recording, I'm like, I have like 4 Fulci shirts, so I had to pick one for tonight. So I realized again though, after I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I ended up watching Fulci for Fake last night, and I know like less than 1%. This guy was like a Corman. He had a ton of movies, and I know like 5, like maybe 6 of them that I've seen, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy did comedies, he did romance movies, he did mysteries, but I'm like,
did westerns, like he did it all.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I had no idea really until I watched this documentary, and it was like blown away. I mean, not that I'm gonna be able to go back and watch a Fulci romance, but no, watching these movies, you're like, he wrote movies with stories, or is it just like, or is romance movies just like no plot with sex scenes?
I'm guessing probably the latter.
Yeah. Lots of close up of eyes, but like sexy eyes in that one. Yeah. Sam, what about you? Is this, I can't remember. Have you watched any of these movies before?
So I thought I had seen The Beyond when Joe Bob played it, but I'm pretty sure I fell asleep when Joe Bob played it, because after about the first 20 minutes of this watch through, I didn't remember any of it. So no, all of these were first time watches. I've seen Zombie 2, I guess, a few times. I love that movie. I just scored it on DVD at Last Stop actually a few weeks ago, which was a treat. But yeah. So I'm fairly new to Fulci. He's definitely a vibe, man. Like all of these movies are a vibe, and it kind of, I could see where he'd rub people the wrong way, but if you're like on the same level as the movie, they're really I don't know. These are all really enjoyable in their own ways.
You thought you'd seen it, The Beyond, but it was just a fever dream you had when you were a child.
Yeah.
It's like the movies. Literally, it's like, Did I really see that? I mean, it's not like shocking, just a big WTF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of how all of these movies play out, especially by the ends. Like all three of the endings of these movies are like, what? Yeah. But I don't know. There's a charm to that.
The first one we'll dive into, City of the Living Dead, especially has a wait, what? What happened? Yeah. What's that ending? What's going on? Yeah, my history is kind of similar to Tad's, where not Quentin Tarantino, but Eli Roth was obviously like huge Italian horror fan, and so it was like, well, I love Eli Roth, like let's see the shit he likes, and so I think Zombie was definitely the first one that I watched. I feel like that's kind of everyone's gateway into Fulci.
Just it probably should be, yeah.
It's not necessarily easy to digest, but it's like, okay, I know Dawn of the Dead and I know like Romero zombies. This is kind of the ugly redheaded stepchild to those. So let's jump into that, and then you discover the rest of Fulci. But yeah, like you, Tad, I've not watched 10% of his filmography because he has so much and has worked. He worked for literally forever, and we're talking about 3 movies that came out over a 2-year period. So we're only just scratching the surface of Fulci's career, and I think these are 3 of the big ones right here that we'll talk about, especially here stateside, because these are all shot in the States with Italian actors, but American dubbing over the Italian actors, but some American actors. Like, it's weird. These movies are insane. They're all shot in different cities too. Like, I don't know what Fulci was doing in the early 80s, but
cocaine,
I love it.
Probably.
I was gonna say
lots of cocaine,
drugs, lots of drugs.
Well, let's jump into this first one then. The first one is from 1980, City of the Living Dead. Obviously, we're talking about all of these. Directed by Lucio Fulci. Written by Fulci and Dardano Sacchetti, which he co-wrote all of these with Fulci as well. There's another writer on the other 2, but these 2 guys work together. Score in this movie, again, incredible. Fabio Frizzi. We'll talk about him all night, I'm sure, because the scores in these movies are a whole nother character in them. So the plot of this movie, it's going to be hard to do a plot synopsis for these movies.
Good luck.
I could be a dick and be like, Sam, what's the plot of City of the Living Dead?
And he could Google it because that's the only way.
I was about to say,
I don't even know if Google's going to give you an answer.
I'm not going to lie, guys. There were multiple times where I just had to pull up Wikipedia and pause the movie for a second and be like, okay, wait, what's going on?
So I guess the general plot of this one is there's a woman named Mary, and it opens with
her doing a seance.
They're doing a seance, and she sees a priest hanging himself in a cemetery, and then zombies begin to come out of the ground in the cemetery, and then she just dies. She dies somehow. I don't know. And
the deadpan delivery of "I'm afraid Mary's dead" is so funny. Like, first laugh of the movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know if Fulci was intending on these to have humor in them, but I did find some humor in these quite a bit. Mostly with the terrible acting, but I don't know. Yeah.
Fulci sort of sometimes, like, just as an example, you just explained like the opening minute of the movie. It comes off as like 13-year-old Tad when he's like, I'm going to write a horror movie. What if like a priest hung himself in a cemetery and then forced zombies start coming out of the ground and she dies? And it's like, that's the first minute. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then like the next scene right after it, again, this makes no sense. We get introduced to, again, I don't know how all these characters are related, but this character who I wrote down is just some random dude, but he's in an old house out who God knows where with a blow up doll. And I don't like I don't understand why the blow up doll never comes back. It's just this character does, but not the blow up doll. And I don't know why it just cuts to him in the house with the blow up doll. Makes no sense. And it's also very funny. So I definitely think Fulci is going for comedy in some of
this. Yeah, he's got a sense of humor to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A weird sense of humor, but a sense of humor nonetheless.
So I guess like what's happening here is like the dead are beginning to uprise. They're beginning to come to life in this small town, Dunwich, which is straight up a Lovecraft town, and you can see the Lovecraft influence throughout all of these movies. Maybe the most prevalent in this one, just because of it's the same town as Lovecraft stories. But again, he loves the Lovecraft part of, I'm not going to tell you what's going on. You guys are going to have to figure it out. And it's like, yeah, are you a genius or are you just lazy? And I think it rides that fine line of Lovecraft, because that was the same thing. It's like, is this guy a genius or is he just like a kind of a bad writer?
Yeah,
he just rides that line perfectly. I'm on the side of like they're geniuses. Maybe
yeah,
a little lazy, but
I mean, sometimes genius is to be lazy. You know what I mean? Like there's something to be said about knowing where your limits are. Like H.P. Lovecraft, when he was describing Cthulhu, literally said he can't be described, and then proceeded to describe him. So like, I don't know, just prefacing that with he can't be described is kind of a lazy shortcut to make you think it's more than what he is just describing in front of it. But it's also like everybody has their own vision of Cthulhu. Like we all know the typical stuff, like the tentacles, the big octopus head, but like everyone's is a little bit different, you know? There is a genius in that, in the vagueness. But who knows?
One of my favorite tropes happens in this movie, and it's one I know you love too, Sam. It's we get the scene where you get the two people like they're in a graveyard, and I don't know what they're doing. They're like moving a body. Like I don't know whose body they're moving.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's explained in this movie. They're moving a body. But anyway, one of them's just straight up reading a nudie mag while sitting on the edge of the grave. The other one's eating this giant sandwich. Like,
yeah.
It's one of the great horror tropes of someone always has to be eating over a dead body.
Yeah, 100%. If you work with dead bodies and you're not eating a giant sloppy sandwich, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong.
Like The Autopsy of Jane Doe, not a single sloppy sandwich in that movie. What the fuck?
Well, that's why it's only a 4-star movie.
Exactly. Yeah. I love like I literally just in my notes have lazy grave diggers. Haha. Like that whole scene was great. I
mostly agreed to do this episode just because I wanted to see Casey try to explain what's happening in these three.
This is so tough. I have literally a page of notes, and it's just like things that happen. It's not a plot. It's things that happen.
Which is how he wrote it. So I think it feels like, that's I want this thing to happen and this thing to happen. It doesn't matter what order, if they connect or anything. Just I want it's like a way to get to the next gnarly kill scene.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
What Fulci does great besides the gore stuff, and we're getting to some really good ones here in a second, but like he does tension really good. Like when Mary awakens in her grave and it's like, oh my God, I'm still alive. Help me get out of here. And you have the guy coming in and just swinging the giant axe, and it's like right next to her face. And it does it again. It's like right by her face. He does it again in House by the Cemetery, and both times it works so well, and it builds so much tension because you're like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like in this movie they would just, that's how that character dies, is like that axe goes right into their face.
It feels like because of the limitations Sam was talking about, like you can tell that these aren't blockbusters, but they're also not like no budget movies, but it feels dangerous when that kind of shit happens. It's like, on the set, you just imagine those actresses and actors were just mortified, like terrified, because they're it's probably a real axe hitting right by their face. There's no CG, there's no anything. That's them swinging an axe and hoping it doesn't impale someone's face. So I think that like level of like punk rock danger is what's exciting about it, and the tension.
Yeah,
you know that they didn't die in real life, but it's still like it makes you uncomfortable watching it.
Yep. Watching someone be put in that danger is just kind of skin crawling in its own way. 100%. Yeah. The entire waking up in the coffin itself is nightmare fuel. Adding in the pickaxe coming through, it's just like there's just layers on top of layers of tension in this scene. He keeps like upping the ante. I love the sound design. Like, it's cheap, but I love how like faded her initial cries are before he gets closer and starts seeing it, in the way like all these different noises are coming in and out of like auditory levels, I guess. I don't know. I just think the sound mix in this scene is pretty incredible, and really adds to the suspense in general.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me in a weird way of, this is a spoiler for Prisoners, but the ending of Prisoners, the Denis Villeneuve film with Jake Gyllenhaal. You guys remember that one?
Yeah, from a long time ago. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah. Oh, you don't? Okay.
No,
yeah.
I don't remember anything about that movie. Yeah.
That ending
I
is
watched it, but
that ending is one of the like, it's tough. So, yeah.
Well, I think that, like, I'm claustrophobic, and that kind of like being buried alive, I would rather take a pick. Like, if I was buried, put the pickaxe right through my head. Like, I would rather
don't even quick. Rescue me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm gonna die of fear first. Like, I just watching that in any kind of movie where there's buried alive. No, I hate that. I mean, and he always deals with, the eyeballs and fingernails and the little things that bother people. Some teeth. Little things that just throats. Just not like the. I mean, there are okay. We'll get to them later in the other movies, but yeah, there's other big ones too. But this guy, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple big scenes. Like there's a running gore gag throughout this movie, and it's where someone has like the back of their head grabbed, and it like whoever's grabbing their head just squeezes and like just pulls brains and part of the skull out. Like it happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie. Every time it's like it's just so disgusting and gross because there's like hair and parts of the skull and the brain. It's like it's so disgusting.
It's like
the effects guy figured out how to do it, and they're like, we got to use this 3 times in the movie because it looks so gnarly.
It does. It's like it's a nasty Cadbury egg. Like every time, it's just just a Cadbury egg of brain and bone, and it's just yeah.
And to think like this was like early 80s, so coming right out of the 70s. I mean, like Savini sort of broke ground with Dawn of the Dead. That was sort of a huge jump in that. But something like, even when they're sort of you can tell they're not real, obviously they're not great, but something about it, again, sort of that punk rock aesthetic of like seeing the hair and the bone. Like you don't normally see that, usually you would see the brains, but it's almost like, and he has some like, adds some like dirt and grime to it too. He's not like clean. Nothing's clean about these movies. All of his movies just feel dusty and dirty, and everything's got cobwebs and sweaty, and just, it's like you can almost smell the movie.
Yeah.
There's a gag with the priest, and he has like a handful of like guts, and it has like worms in it too. And he like shoves it in the girl's face. It's like, again, does this make any sense? Where did that come from? Doesn't matter. It's still gross and disgusting, and it's gonna get a reaction.
Yeah. The couple making out in the car, I think, is the first time you see the brain, and right before that, the girl like literally she starts bleeding from the eyes, which is just a cool visual in general. But then she pukes literally like all of her guts out.
Her organs.
Like every single organ.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting. It's like the fucked up version of the clown scarf. And it just
keeps
going.
Coming, yeah.
It just kept going. And I'm like, oh my God, the whole time. That was so gnarly. That might have been my favorite. That might be my favorite gore gag in the whole movie. I loved that scene.
And that's like, it's pretty iconic Fulci. Like I always think about like when you Google image search Fulci, like you get like a picture of him, a picture of the girl with the like blood coming out of her mouth. You get the girl with the white eyes from Beyond holding her dog, and you get the splinter coming close to the eye.
Yeah,
like those are like, you know, his it's like his greatest hits, you know. But that visual of her, the blonde girl, because she's her like skin is so pale, and she has got the blonde hair and just like the stark red. And it was that, like I said, like the 70s, 80s when the blood was like melted crayon color. You know, it's just, but it's like effective in there with the guts coming out. It's just like guts aren't supposed to be coming. It's almost like cooler that they're coming out of there rather than like being pulled out of her stomach, you know?
Yeah.
And he does such a great job of cutting between the actress with something in her mouth and then to like the prosthetic, just like oozing stuff out of the mouth. And it's such a great cutting back and forth that it tricks your mind of like, oh no, like that's disgusting. Still, for the actress, that is disgusting. She had some of that in her mouth. And I'm sure whatever was in her eyes was not the safest thing.
Oh, probably not.
No. My favorite gore gag in this movie, though, happens with the drill in the guy's garage. Because it just comes out of nowhere. That's like everything in these movies. But it's like the guy's like talking to this high school young girl at her dad's house, and they're in the garage, and the dad comes out and he gets pissed and grabs the guy and is like, I'm not going to kick him out of my house. I'm going to drill a hole through his head.
Yeah. That's insane too. Like that character, the one that gets the drill through the head.
Well, he was a pervert hanging out in the old house with the
yeah. But I also feel like he got the short stick in like every scene in this movie. Like he just kind of got crapped on the whole time, and they got a drill through the head. I guess he was sleazy, but I literally have in my notes, they killed Bob. What the fuck? I was like, it was just a weird way for them to kill him. I'm like, oh, he doesn't even die from a zombie or anything. Like some dad just gets mad and drills his head open. Like
it's the same dad from Friday the 13th Part 5 that just like becomes a murderer for
it's Roy.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the gag of it because it does such a great job of cutting between the actors and prosthetics, where it's like, where does reality and fiction end? Like where do those two lines cross each other? Otherwise, I'm like, no, they just killed that guy. Like he hired some bum to be an actor in this movie, drilled his head.
Yeah.
But I think that's why like I fell in love with these movies when I was in high school, because I was just like, give me the gnarliest, grossest. I don't care about the story. I just want to see. And it was always a thing too of like, we used to have movie nights at the house, and I would invite like so many people over, and I'd be like, you guys got to see this weird movie, The Beyond or The House by Cemetery, and show them the stuff. And they're like, I have no idea what's happening. I'm like, neither do I. And I've seen it 5 times. You know, I have, it doesn't, there's, you know, you can watch it and take all the notes you want. I mean, there's probably experts out there who have analyzed it. I'm sure if I listen to a commentary, someone might try to explain it to me, but you listen to another commentary and they have a whole different view of what's happening. Right. And it's not completely nonsensical. It does go for, you know, we have characters that sort of tell a linear story, but there's just a lot of like that where it's like, that's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it? Like a drill to the head, but I love a drill to the head. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, in all of these movies, there's definitely a main character, or at least a main set of characters that you're following through. It's just that the movie, like Fulci decides to go on these like little tangents throughout. And usually the tangents have some sort of gore gag in them. And like, he doesn't cut away from gore. Like he revels in it. And like every gore scene is at least 3 minutes long, because it's just, that's what he's here for. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, that's how he literally wrote. That's literally how he wrote these movies, though, was I have this idea for a cool gore gag. How do we get from one to the other?
Yeah. And it shows 100%. Yeah.
But also, like, there's nothing else like these movies, though.
No.
Right. Yeah. I always wonder if it's like, you know, even watching Fake for Fulci, like they didn't really touch on it, but it's like there had to have been, and they actually, okay, I lied. They did talk a little bit about like there was some competitiveness between like him and Dario, like friendly rivalry, but it wasn't like a pissy match where they were trying to like outdo each other with gore. But like you go down the road, you know, in the mid 2000s when it was like the Splat Pack, Rob Zombie, Eli Roth, those guys. It definitely felt, you know, like maybe this was like the 80s version of that. Like Dawn of the Dead came out and then it was like all hell broke loose. Everybody could do what they wanted with this stuff. And, you know, you go back and watch some of the other Italian stuff, you know, I mean, these weren't his first films, but like Suspiria is gnarly, but there's no, you know, brains being pulled out or drilled to the head or anything. But it's also like, you know, almost the way he does it is like beautifully shot too. And, you know, he's actually a filmmaker. So it's not just like Savini showing off his tricks or something, you know, it's like these, I don't know. He does it. Yeah. Very differently and very much. You could just show these scenes to people and, you know, they're Fulci movies because like you said, Casey, there's nothing else really like them out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, like he is an actual filmmaker. Like the cinematography of all of these movies is incredible. There's just haunting images throughout all of them. The sound design in all these movies is incredible. The score is just out of this world awesome in these movies. And yeah, these movies are a vibe. Like they kind of transcend just being like a regular horror movie, and they just turn into like you just sit down for 90 minutes, watch this crazy shit happen with this incredible score underneath. And you're like, yeah, I'm digging this. And then afterwards, you're like, yeah, what happened though? Like, what happened in this movie? What's the actual plot? It doesn't matter. Who cares? It was awesome.
And that's why I think like the composer's cut where you didn't hear any dialogue, just a band playing to like the scenes. I'm like, this is actually sort of cooler. You know, but it's like you could almost like you feel like you'd see these movies playing on like a TV behind like a metal band or like a weird like synth band, and you would be like, where the fuck is this from?
Yeah,
and they're all from the same guy. You know, you could do like a 6-hour, you know, compilation of just the weird stuff. And yeah, it's visually just so cool. This is probably a bad analogy, but I think of it like Gwar, where I'm like, I never am going to put on a Gwar record. I'm never going to go on Spotify even and stream Gwar. But if they're anywhere within 2 hours of me, I'm going to drive and see their live show. You know, it's never been about the music necessarily. It's always been about the show. So with Fulci, it's never about like the story. It's about the show, the vibe. It's a whole experience. It's more of a visual and audio experience than a story. And, you know, you have other people where it's like the opposite end, where like Kevin Smith and Clerks, there's like nothing visually happening, but it's interesting because the way these people are talking. So I think that's his strong suit, is just like these scenes of violence and, you know, artfully doing them. It's just, I'm into it.
Yeah. For sure.
All right. You guys have any final thoughts on City of the Living Dead before we move to the Beyond?
Yeah, what is that final shot? The
kid
runs
I
towards
wasn't even going to bring it up, Sam.
Kid runs towards the lady, like the zombies are dead. Kid runs towards the lady. Lady screams, freeze frame, cut to black. I'm like, I'm scared of kids too, but like
all I take from that ending is like the evil's not gone. Like they can't escape it. How? I don't know.
That
maybe
kid act more evil, I guess.
Yeah.
It was just weird. It threw me a little bit. I was like, wait, that's your cut. That's your cut to black. Like,
yeah,
it was weird, but no, I love this. I have somewhere in my notes, rains worms. I don't exactly remember when it rained worms, but no, wait, that was when the window burst open and all the worms came through, right?
All the maggots come
all the maggots come through. Yeah. Okay, never mind. I do remember that.
Why does that happen, Sam?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
It looks cool.
It was cool though.
It looks cool. All right, let's move on to the Beyond. 1981 again, directed by Lucio Fulci. Same writers. We got the same team working on all these movies. This one's set in New Orleans. Sam, what is your first impression watching the Beyond all the way through for the first time?
This is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island for adults. adults who are maybe on like some kind of psychedelics. I feel like The Beyond is one of those that, like, I don't know, I'm not condoning drug use to any of our listeners, but like if you're gonna watch one movie on shrooms, it would probably be The Beyond, right?
I would be terrified.
Yeah, it might be a bad idea.
Yeah,
maybe it would be. I don't know.
You don't need
any. Yeah, you don't need anything to watch this movie. This movie is already a trip.
No, it's great. It is great. Yeah, no, I really like this one. The Beyond is basically about a woman who inherits a house or like a hotel on the bayou, and it has a gate to hell in it. This is the Gates of Hell trilogy, and crazy shit happens. Gross stuff. Yeah.
This is my favorite Fulci. To me, like the pinnacle of his filmmaking, like him at his best and his weirdest. But I love this movie. I mean, the opening in the sepia.
Yeah,
when they're on that is so cool. It kicks off right away with like, you're like, what is going on? Like, we're going back. What was it? 1927? Is that what I had in my notes?
I think so. Yeah.
Which watching Fake for Fulci, they said that's when he was born. So like he
cool.
said it the year he was born. Yeah, I just love that opening. They just use like a weird brownish sepia tone to set it like. This is because it looks sort of like a film from 1927, like a silent era film. It's like, that's how we, in his mind, which his movies already feel very dreamlike. It's like, how do we go back in time and make it look old school? Let's just make it like brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you a do-head, Tad? Have you seen Zombie Island?
I haven't.
It literally pulls pretty much directly from this. Would you not agree, Casey?
Oh, 100%.
Like the whole backstory to Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is ripped straight from The Beyond.
Yeah. This is my favorite Fulci movie. Period. I love this movie. I was looking when I on my Letterboxd. I've logged this 3 times since 2021. So I love this movie. I watched it at the Sioux Falls State Theater. We had the composer's cut, but it wasn't like. We didn't have Fabio Frizzi there. Yeah, we didn't have the live music. It was just, I don't know what was different about it. I don't know what the difference between
I think it's just it's just a little bit shorter because he cuts out some of the like
dialogue.
Some of it, but it's not much different. And Fabio just doing his thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. But like you said, Sam, this is straight up Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island for fucked up adults, and that's exactly what this movie is. That opening of this movie is haunting and terrifying. When I was doing research on these, he based that opening on a true story from New Orleans, and it's kind of crazy to think about because it also, like, the hotel is based on a building there as well, and just how he integrated this old story of like it was this slave woman who was murdered in these houses. And then they tried to burn down the hotel was the real life story. And then how Fulci kind of integrates that into his own real life, or not his own real life, but his own story that he's telling in this movie. And it's haunting. It's terrifying. It's also just kind of nightmare fuel of like, wait, what am I watching? Why does this look like this? What's going on? Why is someone getting crucified in the basement?
Yeah, I literally in my notes wrote Passion of the Christ ain't got dick on this. I mean, it's like it's awful. It is an awful awful opening, and just the acid or whatever it's like creamy, so it's like yogurt acid, I guess, that they drop on him that just starts melting his face. I'm just like, oh my god, like
it's because it's actual acid.
Is actual acid like yogurt?
I don't know, but like they throw it on like a dummy or whatever. But it's like apparently that's what I saw. It was like it's real acid that they're using.
Oh God, I didn't know that. That's wow.
Does that surprise you coming from someone called with Lucio Fulci's filmography?
No, I guess not. A man like him would definitely have access to acid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is New Orleans after all, Sam.
Yeah. New Orleans gets crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. After this opening, all I have is lady with eyes scares painter off scaffolding.
Yep.
How do we feel about that scene? It's a little strange, isn't it? I mean, she just looks at him. Yeah. She just looks at him, and he backs up like 4 steps and just like kind of yeets himself right off.
If I saw a lady with those eyes, I would have done the same.
He like falls and immediately starts like bleeding from every orifice in his head, right? Like his mouth, yeah.
Yeah, everything.
In a Fulci movie, if you like trip, your blood splatters everywhere. You're just like a water balloon of blood.
Yeah.
A water balloon. Yeah, that's apt. That's a good description.
It's like he didn't fall that far, but yeah, he's apparently got internal bleeding immediately.
Again, the logic of this movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think this is probably the one that makes the least amount of sense.
I would agree with that.
In terms of the real world logic of it.
Because but it's also...
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say it's also this one in particular reminded me a lot of Zombie, where it's like, yeah, the plot meanders all over the place, but there's like a great gore gag, like a memorable set piece every like, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those where you don't feel the meanderingness as much because it's like keeping you invested in each individual thing it's meandering to. Whereas like some of his other ones, like City of the Living Dead, and we'll talk about House by the Cemetery, some of the time when they meander off, it's not quite as memorable, but this one just all the way through, the
pacing on this one is the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, even with the regular cut, composer cut, doesn't matter. It gets rolling, and once it gets going, it goes. It just doesn't stop. It's like you don't want to look down because there's always something gnarly right around the corner, which adds to the intensity for me. It's like because he fits so much into it, it's always, and even after I've watched it, a dozen times, I'm just like, I forget about stuff, and you see a scene and you're like, oh, is this the one? And you sort of think, oh yeah, what's gonna happen? You see the little girl with the red pigtails, you're like, oh, she's getting fucked up.
Yeah.
And the way he shows, like, he hints at little things, like the camera shows a little like jar of acid on the top of the table, and you're like, in a morgue, you're like, yep, that's not going to be good in a Fulci movie. Anybody climbing a ladder, that's not going to be good in a Fulci movie. Anybody existing, that's not going to be good in a Fulci movie.
Yeah, if you're in a Fulci movie, good luck.
Like there's a like the dog, there's nothing suspicious about the dog. It's like, oh no, like the dog, like you better watch out because there's a dog, or just normal regular tarantulas in a terrarium. Like, just watch out because they're gonna eat your face
while you're still alive.
Yeah, I remember like seeing it for the first time, and I'd heard about that scene so many times. And watching it, and I sort of had the same reaction Sam hinted to, where it's like, okay, like when they show the close-ups, it's like maybe should have dimmed the lights a bit, something, because they are just like little rubber mechanic things that are, I mean, and they're making like screechy sounds. Like spiders don't make sounds. Like
I love the spider squealing.
It's like are these like, they sound like kittens or something? Like it's so weird. Again, but it just adds to it. But it's like, I mean, when they cut to like, it makes it worse that they cut to like real ones and back to the rubber ones, and they're biting his face in an illogical way that doesn't make any sense. But just the idea, like, again, maybe it's just because I'm like always a child at heart, where it's like, it's just seeing a person get their face eaten by even rubber spiders. I still love it. It's still awesome.
Yeah, it still gets you giddy. Like, I love the one that just burrows up into the nose and is just like munching there. It's like, the music in this is so. The music in this scene in particular too is so off-putting, because like it's kind of jazzy and upbeat as these like spiders are like tearing apart a human face. It's just kind of like,
it has a cool bass line. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, cool. I guess I'm rocking out to these spiders just eating a face, man. Like,
yeah, like Tad said, like the scenes, especially in this movie, if you put them behind a band in a concert, like this is that scene. Like,
yeah, 100%.
It's such an illogical scene, but again, the music is just entrancing and like a little haunting because it's like it doesn't fit what I'm seeing on the screen, but it's also like, I don't know, again, a vibe. It's just a total vibe in the scene. I love it. It's so much fun. It's goofy, and I think it's kind of just the right amount of goofy in the scene. Like, why? How are they eating this guy's face so easily? Since when do like tarantulas want to eat human faces? It's awesome.
They don't have like mouths. Like that's not how they eat. Like we know that spiders like, wrap things in web, or they suck the innards out. Like it's not, they don't have like jaws. They don't
teeth.
But in this they have like sharp little things. I mean, it's literally like logic of like a 9-year-old when they see spiders. They're like, that's probably how they eat. But again, like this is like, I mean, I'll probably always have that image in my head when I saw Fabio and his band, and it was like him on the keyboard up front. And then he had like all these 20, 30-year-old like hipster dudes like behind them jamming out, and they're just like, it's like slapping a bass and rocking out as like spiders are. And I'm like looking around the bar, just wondering how many people this is the first time they've seen it. I don't imagine you'd buy a ticket to see Fabio Frizzi doing this if you weren't aware of it. But I'm like, it's like already a trip, and then seeing that live was like another level to it. So like, just I was like, this is just a weird. I'm like looking around the room, just thinking like, this is my life, man. Like this is weird. Like, like there's but I love that we're in the era that like he can go travel to the U.S. and do this kind of thing and play in live venues, and enough people will pay that he can make a living doing that. Like, or John Carpenter doing live shows sell out. Like, how fucking cool is that? Like, if you would have told me that when I was in high school that they're gonna take this thing on tour, like, what are you talking about? But I mean, there's something to be said about that. There's a reason this movie is so beloved, even through the generations. Tarantino, putting it back out in theaters because he loved it. And then, our generation, there's probably somewhere this weekend playing it in the US. It's just, it's not just a cult favorite. It's, especially this one. And visually, like, you just think about the scenes of the spiders, and then the girl standing on the highway with the water behind her and holding the German Shepherd. That's like visually just so fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I went and saw this at the State Theater here, I was shocked how many people were there, because I was like, I hope 20 people show up to this, because it's the beyond, like, not that many people know about it. And we had there was like 100 people there. And
hell yeah.
It was so cool to watch that in a crowd, and I think everybody was somewhat into it, as much as people who probably watched it for the first time can be into a Lucio Fulci movie. I was 100% into it. I was like,
it's a great crowd
movie. Third row, like soaking everything in for this movie.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was doing that weekend, but I missed that one, and honestly, now I'm kind of bummed about that because. Yeah, this movie cooks.
Yeah. The scene that shocks the hell out of me every time I watch it is the dog scene, though.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. Like, this movie in particular has a couple of scenes that are genuine, like the opening and the dog scene, genuinely hard to watch. Where it's just like, oh god, like I don't like what's happening on screen right now.
Yeah, it's straight up like. I don't know if I'm not having fun watching it, but it's like I'm feeling a little woozy here. Like that's the scene that does it for me. I can handle the opening. I can handle tarantulas eating someone's face. I can handle all the eyeball gore you can give me, but just the dog coming straight for her jugular just shocks me every time it happens.
Well, and then he doesn't stop. He like takes the ear and just takes it right off, and it's just like, oh yeah.
The other scene I always think of as far as the gore stuff is like, when the girl gets like the top of her head cut off, and you see it's like a perfect line, because it's like she's such a strange looking girl anyways, and you feel for her because she's like awkward and and so when you like you still see her like mouth, so you can recognize her without like the top of her head, and it's just the clean cut. Yeah, gnarly.
Ooh, yeah, that one was tough. You also have like more eyeball gore. This one was earlier, but there's the hand that comes out of the wall and just like pulls the guy's eyes out. And then later he like pops out of a closet in front of a lady who doesn't seem remotely surprised to see a man like coughing up blood without eyes. Like it's just like it's so great. Like I loved that sequence. I was like, wow, she is just surprisingly so cool and collected. I'd be running out the door right now.
It's a Fulci movie. The logic is of the entire world.
It's dream logic, basically. Yeah.
This is normal for them.
Yep. Oh man.
The main character in this movie, in the final act, where all the zombies come and start like trying to attack our main character, that guy is a worse shot than any stormtrooper in the Star Wars movies.
Okay,
what a terrible shot.
Yeah, he's either a terrible shot or he's just dumb, because like very clearly the only shots that are taking these zombies out are headshots, and he continues to aim for center mass, and I'm just like, bro, they're 4 feet in front of you.
Shoot him in the head.
Just shoot him in the head. There were moments where I was just yelling at my TV, like, just headshot, motherfucker. Like, what are you doing? Because this whole scene is intense. The autopsy theater where like all the bodies are like, I'm like, nope, get out of there. Oh yeah. There's like a shot at one point of like all the silhouettes in like the hotel windows. That's just like eerie and creepy. And, oh God, I don't know. This whole like, okay, so I came into this episode with a hot take, and through talking about this movie, I think I'm reverting back to your takes, which is this is my favorite of the three.
What was your other hot take? What was your...
My favorite was actually going to be House by the Cemetery, which is still my second favorite. I really like that one. But this one, man, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, oh God, but that was awesome. And that was awesome. And that was awesome. And I don't know if I have as much of that for House by the Cemetery as much as I just really like the vibe of that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The ending of this movie is by far my favorite ending of these three. I think it's the one
coolest.
It's the coolest.
It's
I think
weird.
it makes the most sense out of all of them.
I think so too, yeah.
Where they're like in hell, basically.
They're straight up in hell. There's no escaping. There's no hope. That's it. Their eyes turn white, and it's just this big wide shot of this hellscape.
Yeah,
awesome.
Another beautiful shot. Yeah, it's so cool. Like artfully done. That's the thing, is like some of these scenes, like that scene, the scene where she almost hits the girl on the highway, you know, in the blue dress with holding the German, like those are so beautiful. Like the guy can make a beautiful film, and he chooses violence, which is like almost like scary. You know, it's like, what's up with this dude? Like he could make just beautiful, beautiful films, and he's like, let's fucking rip out some brains and eyeballs, guys.
Yeah. He's like,
he got bored with the rom-coms. He got bored with the westerns. He's like, I can't rip out anyone's eyeballs in those.
But I mean, you think about like Fabio, like a classically trained musician, super talented, and he's scoring these things. So it's like he's not alone, you know. And apparently there was a demand for it because these things were successful when they came out, and he kept getting money to make more. I mean, he made, like you said, all three of these within 2 years. He's pumping them out. So there's some kind of merit behind it, and you know, whether it was to pay the bills or a mixture of paying the bills and having fun or exercising his demons. But it was interesting watching Fulci for Fake. Like his daughters interviewed in it, both of his daughters, but the main interviews with his I think her daughter, and she talked about how The Beyond was like the first movie where she realized dad was the director. And she wasn't on the set or anything, but like, you know, growing up, he's just sort of like, I think her mom worked somewhere in Hollywood too. and then they split, and she lived with dad, and you know, he just like, that was work. Like, he just went and made films all the time, and you know, she didn't know any different. He made sure to take care of her, and he gave her a really good life, and she had actually a very rough life. That's a whole different story, but not because of him, just a bad set of circumstances, falling off a horse and getting really sick and nearly dying. But it was interesting. I won't go off on too much of a tangent, but I knew nothing really about Fulci other than his films going into this, and this really didn't answer a whole lot of questions. He's sort of like the Italian Tommy Wiseau, where nobody knows anything about him. He was sort of like a mystery. And well, they had all these stories, and it's like the stories are all from people he worked with on set, and they're all sort of just like, he was a very sweet, quiet, unassuming man. Some of the people said, you know, there was times where he was like, he could get angry or aggressive on set, but he was always very professional and very quick and would get things done very quickly. That's why they liked, you know, studios liked him, because he could film a movie really fast and it would come out and be good. But like, again, at the end of this, it was sort of like, there's still so much to be answered for, like why he did certain things and decisions he made. And, you know, it was sort of sad movie, but I recommend it. It's on Shudder. Fulci for Fake. It's pretty fascinating. And I watched that last night, just sort of like, maybe I'll get some insight on him. Not really. I mean, there's a little bit, but it really just sort of showed that he's such a weird mystery. And some of these stories, it's like, are they even real? Because he told them to other people who told them to other people. You know, he's a very mysterious guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of makes his movies make even more sense or less sense, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't get any more information about him as a person from watching his movies either, of like, well, what does he think of life and death and like the human experience? And it's like, I don't know what he thinks after watching these movies. I think he just knows death exists, and it's going to happen to everyone at some point.
Well, there was a point where later in his career, he had a heart attack and he had to stop making movies for like a year. And it was like really, really hard on him, because that's all he knew. And his daughter and Fabio, everybody was sort of saying, like, in that year, he only told his like really close friends that this happened. And he was like, he had this heart attack. He came out okay, but they're going to have to do open heart surgery to fix it. And he was terrified of having open heart surgery. And it's like, this man who does all these gnarly things in film is like, he was like scared. He was, you know, and he was afraid to even tell people he loved, because he's afraid they would panic too. And he just didn't really want to face it and try to ignore it. And he ended up having it, and he made it out okay. And then later died of complications from his heart issues. But like, I think he was more scared of like, if I die, I can't make more films, and then I can't take care of my daughters, and I can't, you know, and it's like, he lived to make movies, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out, especially just going through these 3 movies has been a trip. And I mean, if there is more information out there, I'd like to know it, but yeah.
Well, one of the movies, little cool story from Fabio Frizzi was that there was like a piano on set, and it was just like brought in as a prop, and it was way out of tune, and he played this little thing, and Fabio or Lucio was like, that's really cool, make that, you know, put that in the score. And it became like the main theme, and it's just an out of tune piano. And he's like, it's been driving musicians crazy for 30-40 years, because they're like, how did this thing's out of tune, but it sounds so cool and haunting, and you can't like untune a piano perfectly to replicate it.
Right.
And he can't even like perform that live, because keyboards you can't put out of tune. He's not going to bring an out of tune piano. So he sort of, you know, shot himself in the foot, but it was a cool result.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool.
All right, let's jump into this last movie. I don't have much to say about House by the Cemetery. I think this one's fun. I think all of them are fun. This is my least favorite of the 3.
Mine too.
Just
because of this guy.
What? Because of that guy?
Bob is the worst.
Oh my God. I love Bob.
Bob is an S-tier horror character. I think he rules. I love him in this movie. I love that we're both wearing House by the Cemetery shirts.
Hell
Sam,
yeah.
where's yours?
I don't have one, but I'm probably gonna
need
get
to
one.
get
This one, out of all of the movies, like I felt like this one was, well, it's the most accessible probably because it
Of these
has
three, yes.
it has, yeah, of these three, it has an actual plot that, for whatever like dalliances that he has elsewhere, oh god, stupid dumb thing, he I don't know, like there's a through line here that I appreciated where I was like, okay, I'm following essentially like these three characters. And I thought the character dynamics were interesting. I liked how they played with, is the husband a scumbag who's lying about having never been here? Or is this one of those weird things where like, no, someone who looks just like him really was here? About halfway through, I wrote in my notes, is this Lucio Fulci's The Shining? And in a way, I kind of think it is. And in another way, I think he abandons The Shining about halfway through for a Frankenstein slasher, which is also something that I just adore as a concept. Like, hell yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I word barfed everywhere, but like, yeah, I really dug this movie.
Are you comparing it to The Shining because there's annoying kids with bad haircuts?
Yeah, and parents who are clearly kind of like at odds with each other, and they're all moving into this new place that's definitely a little creepy. And I was just like, and also, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely thought that kid was possessed for the first like 15 minutes of this movie. I was like, there's something wrong with him, right? But no, that's just how Bob is.
Right.
And I grew to love Bob over the course of the movie.
Well, it is interesting. Like you mentioned that the story is probably like most accessible. It's like each movie gets a little more that way. And maybe that's why I like it the least, because I'm like, I love the mix of it in the Beyond where I'm like, there is enough story to keep me going, but there's enough like gnarly kill weird. And I'm just a sucker for beautiful landscapes and scenes. And that one to me has like the most iconics, but this one has less of those, but it's probably, like you said, the most linear and straightforward movie. And
Yeah.
of course, I'm wearing a shirt with Bob on it. I don't actually hate Bob, but he is like one of the most, until the Babadook came out, was one of the most hated kids in cinema, at least in horror cinema. And then
Yeah.
Babadook came out, and that kid, everybody hates him way more. So Bob got a break finally.
Finally.
Bob
Yeah.
reminds me of the kid in Cabin Fever, and I think we talked about this in
Pancakes, yeah,
the Pancakes kid, yeah. And I swear, because he has like the exact same terrible haircut. The Pancakes
Dennis, yeah, absolutely. Eli Roth had to have modeled him off of that.
Off Bob, yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't even make that connection.
Know karate.
Yeah,
no.
Bob doesn't know karates, but
not yet. Anyway, he might by the end of this movie in the afterlife. He might learn some karate,
or we just don't. He never has to use it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I just love that. Like again, with the weird like Italian crew with some American actors, but we're shooting this in America and we're dubbing over the Italian actors. It's like, let's not get a kid who can speak English, and we're just going to get an Italian kid and bring him over to the U.S. to shoot this movie and then just dub over everything he says in one of the worst dubbings ever with Bob. It's so bad, but it's so funny.
The dub makes it. It's so good. Oh my God. So I also like, I feel like with the visuals, this one has, it might not have as many different striking visuals like the Beyond does, but I think the way that Fulci shoots the house, like on the exterior shots especially, like, oh my God, every shot of that house is beautiful. Like there's one that's like, it's dusk, the sky is just like a deep blue, and he's just panning over the field, and he stops at the house, and the house's windows are illuminated with the same like blue as the sky. And it's just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a movie. I don't know. I was mesmerized by that. So yeah, I don't necessarily think the style varies as much in the like beauty shots, for lack of a better term, but like, I do think that the few that are in this movie are really incredible.
So there was something you mentioned in your sort of plot synopsis, Sam, that I don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So like this family moves in, the dad starts investigating, like Dr. Freudstein which is a great character. That's a great movie character name. It's a perfect evil scientist character. That's the perfect name for them.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a point where like he's it's like at the school or the library, and they're like, "Yeah, you were here or whatever a couple months ago," and it's like, no, the dad's like, "No, I wasn't." That's never brought up again. It's never concluded by the end of this movie. Like, what is that line? What does that mean? Are we supposed to think like they're in some sort of cycle, or maybe like,
and it's brought up
expecting this family? I don't know.
It's brought up before that too, once in front of the wife, and the wife is like suspicious that he brought like a second family there, but then she never brings it up again either. So it's like, it's one of those unresolved plot threads that just kind of permeate all of these. But like, part of it is genius because it kind of makes you think like, maybe this is cyclical. Maybe they're not remembering like every time this is happening. Like maybe they're already in hell and this is just their eternal punishment. Like, I don't know. This movie to me had there's just the most to chew on for me thematically in this one, I guess. And maybe that was because of the more linear, straightforward plot. I was able to pick up themes on a first watch a little bit more. Like maybe as I watch like City of the Living Dead and The Beyond more and know what to expect and know where it's going, I'll be able to pick up on like, oh, this means this. Probably whereas not. Like, no, well, maybe not. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I just felt like House by the Cemetery was very much more that in that vein of film than.
Oh yeah,
it's a little less abstract than the first two.
Yeah,
and I appreciated that.
There's also not as many characters in this one compared to the other two.
Yeah,
where The Beyond and City of the Living Dead have so many characters. This one, you really just focus on the family, and then they have like the nanny as well. But there's a scene
when the nanny gets decapitated. It's so funny. Bob's scream just like sent me laughing.
I was just gonna say, there's not a whole lot of gore gags in this one compared to the other two. Like one of the big ones that happens earlier on is like the dad gets attacked by a bat in the basement, and it goes on for so long.
It's like
this bat like attached to his hand, and he just like cannot get it off.
Yep,
it's so funny.
I wrote in my notes, "Damn, Fulci, you got a problem with bats?" Like, it's an insanely long scene, and like he stabs the bat over and over, and you're like, it's a small bat. That's a pretty big, like, it was.
Oh, that was
like
a big
fire poker.
Bat. No, that was a big bat.
Yeah, but that knife stabbing it like 4 times, it would have been at least in half. I don't know. That was crazy. It was
hard to cut through a rubber bat. Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing that I appreciate in this one in particular is like, well, and I guess the spider scene too, like the actual animal violence, like the animal is not on screen and you can tell, because that's not always the case with like especially Italian horror films. And it's like, oh god, and Fulci's guilty of that a lot, but like I did appreciate that House by the Cemetery did not seem to have any animal cruelty in it.
No bats were harmed in the making of this movie.
Right. Just rubber ones from the joke shop down the street.
Yeah. But like the real like gore gag that happens is like the decapitated head that just rolls down the stairs of the nanny. And it's so funny.
It really is. And just Bob's scream is just, I rewound that scene and played it like a few times because it was too good. It was too good.
Do you think they kept like the real Bob actor scream, or was it an overdub of the scream too? Like he Italian screamed and they had to put an American scream.
It's definitely the American scream.
I was about to say I would definitely believe it was dubbed, but yeah. It was definitely dubbed.
I always like when I started watching Italian horror, I was like, I was always confused. Like why do some people look like they're actually speaking English? Some people look like they're dubbed, but it's so confusing. When I Googled it, like basically from what I read was that like if they have an Italian actress or actor that they really like and they don't speak English, they will read the script in Italian, and they're like, even in a scene, the same scene, like if there's American that speak or even Italian that speaks English, they'll say it back in English, and then they'll go back and ADR everything, even like the English. Like
that's crazy.
And it's like just cheaper to do that than get good audio the first time. It's like we'll just ADR everything because capturing the performance does not matter.
Yeah. No. Well, can you imagine too, like as an actor, how weird that must be to be doing scenes with someone who isn't even speaking the same language as you?
Yeah.
And not in an intentional way, just in this actor does not speak the same language as you. We're doing the scene anyways. And it's like,
and you know, I get it's already confusing in these movies. I mean, the actors can't have any more of an idea than we do as to what the fuck's happening.
Right.
So it just adds a level of confusion to them, because at least we're seeing it in one language at least.
Yeah.
But it's just like to be a fly on the wall in these sets, to amazing, like just so bizarre, so weird. I have so many more questions after watching these than I did before. Every time I watch them, it doesn't answer. Sam, rewatching The Beyond 12 times, it's not gonna make any more clear. It might make less sense somehow.
Well, I'll still look forward to it because that spider scene, they were those adorable little bastards. God, I love them.
Sam, what was more adorable, the fake tarantulas or the fake bat?
The fake tarantulas, probably. You didn't get a good look at the bat, really. You
just got him like face down, stuck on the guy's arm for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. If they would have showed more of the bat, probably the bat, because I'm a bat guy.
Team bat.
I think they're adorable. I love bats. I always have. So yeah, probably the bat if he'd gotten more screen time, but. As for what we got, spiders all the way. All the way. The tarantulas were, I don't know, I wanted to reach through the screen and pet them. They would just look so fuzzy and cute, like even while they were digging in that guy's nose.
That can be our Spotify poll for this episode. What's cuter in these movies?
Yeah, there we go.
The fake tarantula or the fake bat?
Or Bob.
All the Bob fans out there are going to go nuts for this one.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bob, so we get again like a callback, basically, or just him doing the same gag over again from City of the Living Dead. Is that Bob is like pressed up against the door of the basement
by the reanimated? Well, not reanimated, but like
the zombie. Dr. Freudstein,
who's been keeping himself alive by like harvesting parts from people, which is awesome. Like. I don't know how, but they're like, and they all explain this in like dialogue as they're running to save Bob. And they're like, it's like, oh, he's using parts to regenerate and blah, blah, blah. He's 150 years old. And it's like, oh, okay.
Quick exposition. Where do we fit it in? Yeah.
At least there was exposition in this one. He didn't bother in the other two movies.
Right. It does feel like a growth between each film a little bit. Like, even if it's just a little bit, like this is probably the most like not even cinematic, just like you said, the most accessible. Like you're not gonna just show this to your mom or something, but like if you had to show one of these to someone that you didn't want to freak out, maybe this would make the most sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure. Sam showed Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 to his mom, so I would not be surprised if he had his house by the cemetery.
Well, this saw his family, so
yeah. No, mom was a champ during our TCM2 screening. I told her before, I was like, I get it. If you need to leave, like my feelings aren't going to be hurt. And she was like, oh no, I'll leave if it gets to be too much. Stayed through the whole thing.
Hell
She's
yeah.
a champ.
What
I
a
think
champ.
she was pretty grossed out by it, but yeah.
Let's
All
get to
right.
the ending of this one. Does this ending make sense to you guys? Out of the 3 endings of these movies, do you think this one makes any sense?
I still think The Beyond is the only one that really has a sensical ending for me.
Yeah.
But if anyone can explain this one to me, I might change ships.
I think I understand the ending, but I don't think it makes sense for the story, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, the ending is like, so Bob is like, the parents get killed by Dr. Freudstein. Bob is trying to get out between this little gap that's in the basement. And basically, this little girl that's befriended him this entire movie, who's dead,
Yeah.
pull him out. And then there's a woman there, her mom, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Who's like Mary Freudstein, who's like maybe the wife of the zombie doctor scientist. Yeah.
And I think we're to assume Bob is now in the afterlife.
Yeah. That's how I read it, but it just feels weird to have that be the ending instead of something triumphant for Bob.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
Because, like, does he not escape the doctor then? Is this like his vision of the afterlife of, oh, the doctor got to him, but
maybe, yeah.
Or is there some like magical being, the little girl literally pulls him out of the real world into the afterlife without dying? It's Bob Jesus?
Yeah. Maybe.
Well, like, the doctor sort of gave me, like, I watched this and I was like, oh, all 3 of these like got, Rob Zombie influenced, he watched these movies, and that doctor made me think of I don't even know, the dad in House of 1,000 Corpses. At the end, he's chasing through the tunnels with the pickaxe.
Yeah, isn't it Dr. Satan, right?
Well, no, Dr. Satan's the one at the end. He's like operating on Hardwick's character.
Yeah.
It's a guy who has like the thing he pulls off and the puke comes out of his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know. It's like the dad in that movie. It's like, again, there's parts in House of 1,000 Corpses that are very Fulci where they don't make sense, including that plot line where he's like chasing them through those underground tunnels and he knocks over the things and the whole tunnel collapses on him, and that's like all we see of him. But he he almost looks exactly like that. I was like, seeing that again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's sort of reminds me of that character.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if it was directly influenced from this, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually, it's funny. I've seen quite a bit of resurgence for this, for the House by the Cemetery in recent years. Like, it was like last October or something. I saw it on I want to say it was like Bloody Disgusting or something, had it on like a top 6 Halloween vibe horror movies or something like that. And so this has actually been on my watch list for the last like 6 months or so. And I don't know. It's funny. It's the hardest one of these 3, I think, to track down. But I feel like I'm starting to hear about it quite a bit more. Even more so than City of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
I think like all of them, like Eli Roth's History of Horror, that was on Shudder, and like Bravo's like 100 Scariest Moments. Like, they all have either the eyeball scene from Zombie or the dog bite or the spiders have popped up in those. I think in Eli Roth's History of Horror, he just covers this trilogy because it's like, to him, if you've seen all 3, it sort of is like a fun package deal. Like, you get more story in one, but you get more visuals in another, you get more gore, and like they all sort of complement each other.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I would agree with that. As a trilogy, I think these all work really well. Not just for the plot point of like, oh, all of them have a gate to hell at some point, but like just thematically and the way all 3 of them end, kind of, even though they make varying levels of sense, they all kind of work in tandem with each other. Like, these do feel like 3 works that are kind of meant to be consumed together. Like you could watch these on their own and they'd stand up as just great movies from a master of gore. But at the same time, like just watching this trilogy over the past week, I'm like, no, like if I watch these again, it will probably be like these 3 in a row. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had seen all these, and it was funny because I had to go on my DVD shelves. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I own them all, and I did. But of course, I was like, if they're like, I think I have the Beyond on Blu-ray or 4K, but the other 2 I just had on DVD. So I was like, do I watch the streaming? Because it might be like a remastered, like better looking version. But you know, I had to even like Google like which order are they in. I couldn't even remember, like, because they don't really story-wise follow each other in any way. So there, you don't have to necessarily even watch them in order, but it is like, it makes for like a great triple feature. You know, it's a fun night to watch them together. And I was super giddy when Joe Bob showed the Beyond on Last Drive-In, just because I love when he introduces me to a movie, and I love when he shows a movie like this where he can just like really, when I don't know much of the background of it, and he can sort of tell those stories and talk about it, how he feels about it. And so if you haven't seen it yet, watch it on its own, or watch it as part of this trilogy, but don't watch the Joe Bob version until after. I always recommend that, like, watch it for the first time as a standalone movie without the interruptions, and go back and watch it. But it's a cohesive like trilogy of work. It's sort of like, you know, the Cornetto trilogy. Like they're all thematically great together, even if they don't follow this story together.
Right. And you absolutely could switch around the order of both of these, and your experience wouldn't vary much. Like you're still watching 3 like tonally consistent movies.
Yeah.
But you know, you can do what you will with
you don't
order.
need to watch any of these in any order.
Yeah.
At all, because there is no crossover of characters. There's definitely crossover of themes, but it's not so much where it's like, well, I need to watch that one first, then this one, then that one to understand the overall theme. No, the overall theme is like death, and like the gates of hell have opened, and that's kind of it. And then a bunch of gore in between.
What if we watched them in like reverse order or mix it up, and suddenly they all made sense to us? We're like, oh my god, we've been missing.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle box.
Bob from this movie, from House by the Cemetery, is the same Bob from City of the Living Dead.
Oh god,
grows up to be a pervert and gets a drill through his head.
That would make me so sad.
Yeah, that's not the future I want for Bob.
No, definitely not. So if you guys were gonna watch this outside of like the chronological order that we just talked about them in, what switched up order would you do? I'm curious. How would you program this triple feature?
If I couldn't, if it was, you know, obviously I'd watch them the way they're ordered,
the way they've been released.
Yeah. But yeah, if not, I would probably like ramp up to the Beyond, just because to me it's like the perfect balance of the two. So maybe I don't know about the first 2 what I would go with. Maybe House by Cemetery, because it has the most plot and story, and you sort of you ease into it, and then you have story and gore, and then you just have like balls to the wall weirdness. Ramp up to the madness of the Beyond.
That actually is what I would do. I think I would do House. I think I would do City, and then I would do the Beyond to top off the night. For exactly those reasons. And I think you book at, like, you guys, I know House is maybe your least favorite, but for me, it's like, oh, I'd want to bookend my 2 favorites around the one that I like, kind of not necessarily like down on, but just the one that, I mean, that one's fine. You know, that one's not the one that I'm going to pull out of this trilogy personally, but yeah,
but
I like City. I don't love it.
I was gonna say, even my least favorite of the trilogy is still good. It's like, you know, I still would love the hell out of all of them. And I have seen New York Ripper. I was trying to think, like, watching that documentary, what of the other films I've seen. And
I didn't finish New York Ripper. That was a lot.
Yeah,
that was a lot for me.
I've seen New York Ripper and Zombie, and New York Ripper is very sleazy.
Very sleazy. Yeah. I just remember like it might have been for a birthday or something in high school. We ordered like I ordered like a bunch of Fulci movies, and it was like, you know, watch Zombie the first, and then like Beyond. I'm like, okay, I get this guy's vibe, and then watch that, and I'm like this is gross. Like this isn't even like fun gross where a head rolls down the steps. This is just like rape and razor blades. Like
yeah, it's a lot. Wasn't my vibe, but
no,
yeah,
it's a one and done.
Yeah. None of these three that we've talked about are one and dones. Like these are all three movies that I will 100% be watching again in the future.
It was cool. His daughter said like for Zombie that he like combined his old style of westerns with a horror movie, and that's where like that movie came out, because like watching it, like even the zombies were like dusty and you shoot them and like they looked powdery and like their dry skin. I'm like, that gives off that like desert western vibe. I thought that was sort of cool. I never really thought of Zombie as a western, but like in his mind that was like how he made that. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's neat. That is kind of the aesthetic of that, isn't it?
Even the look of it, it's like sort of like yellow orangey, like warm tones, like earth tones.
Yeah.
What order would you watch them, Casey?
Yeah, I would do the same as you guys. Like I would end with the Beyond. I'd watch City of the Living Dead in the middle, and I'd start things off with Bob. Like Bob is the perfect horror character to just ease you into the night of stuff just not making sense.
Yep, 100%. If you can't get audiences hooked with Bob and his bad dub, I don't know what's going to hook an audience in.
They're going to leave after that movie anyway, then.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even like with Bob, it does add like knowing Fulci, and it's the third in the trilogy. You've seen all the horrible things he's done to people, and then you see a kid, you're like, oh fuck, like what horrible things are gonna. So the idea of like keeping him till the end and putting him in these situations,
that's true,
is intense in its own. Because I mean, I don't like kids, but I don't want to see a kid get horribly disfigured by one of Fulci's fucked up brain kills, but it adds that intensity.
Even like City of the Living Dead, like the protagonist of that movie shoots a little kid zombie right in the head, and I mean it like blows the kid's head clean off, and it's just like, good God, like it's not played somberly, it's not played for emotion, it's just, here's a little kid zombie. Like, whoa, okay.
It's kind of crazy. Just one last thing before we wrap up our Fulci talk, but I think like the crossover with Fulci and Romero is so fascinating because somehow George Romero just fits perfectly into the like 70s 80s Italian filmmaker group, like Fulci and Argento, and it's like there's no one else stateside that I can think of that falls into that group like Romero did. And even watching City of the Living Dead, I'm like, there's so much Romero in this, but I also see stuff that Romero took from that and put into some of his later films. Because like there's stuff in the bar in City of the Living Dead that looks like it's something out of Creepshow, the way the lights are behind them and everything. And I'm like, I think like just Romero and Fulci just really liked each other's stuff and maybe had a little bit of a like, hey, if you do this, I'm going to do this next time. And if you do that, I'm going to do this.
Which is just so funny because like it makes you think like, was Fulci a genius and we're just not understanding what he's trying to say with these movies? Because Romero is a little more on the nose with the political undertones and what he's saying about the world of these things. And, he used zombies to say what he wanted to say about the world, where Fulci is like, he has nothing. Does he have nothing to say? Maybe we're all missing it. And, that's another one of his mysteries. They sort of talk about that in the documentary too. Like, is he really a genius? We talked about it. Is he a genius, or, is it more simple than we're thinking? Maybe we'll never know because he's dead now. But, that is interesting that like Romero got, even with Dawn of the Dead, there's like the Argento cut, he somehow got involved with these Italians. He used Goblin in the score.
Goblin's the score. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a cool, like just a cool time in film history that, to think he made Night of the Living Dead way back when, black and white, like the granddaddy of them all. And it sort of led to these like weird Western zombies fighting sharks. I mean, to see how far it got, and then to see that they collaborated on shit and were friends, and it's just cool. Like cool, great filmmakers making wildly weird movies.
Yeah. And like outside of the studio system, really, like they were all kind of doing these things on their own, which was so, I don't know. There's just like, it's kind of like you said earlier, there's a punk rock aesthetic to like all three of those filmmakers, where it's just like, God, they gave no fucks about like what they were supposed to be doing as filmmakers. They just did what they wanted to. And it was kind of, I don't know. I think we're starting to see that again in film these days. Like, I don't know. I feel like we're heading towards, or maybe we're already in it, but I feel like we're in an era where that is going to start being the case, with studios kind of, like studio movies aren't doing super great right now. Like they're not what everybody's going for, but I've seen a lot of indies recently that have just taken off just because of word of mouth. And I don't know. I think we could have a new crop of Fulcis and Argentos and Romeros coming up right now, and we might not even know it. I mean, some of the things we were saying about Fulci tonight, I'm kind of like, with him being like, oh, he can make these beautiful movies, and he chooses violence, is what you said, Tad. And I'm like, kind of reminds me of Ari Aster a little bit, where it's like, oh, he can make like beautiful, like emotionally engaging movies, and he chooses this.
I mean, like Carpenter, for the longest time, people like, he's so talented, but like he just makes horror movies. So he made Starman and was like a fuck you to be like, I can do a Spielberg movie if I had to. I'm going to show you that I can make an Oscar movie. And now I'm going to go back to the horror, guys. Like, right. I choose to do this. It's not because it's all I can do or all I want to, I'm choosing to do this. But I did have my notes before I forget. I had a note about House of the Cemetery at the very end. No one will ever know whether children are monsters or monsters are children. Henry James. I agree with that. Fuck children. But
know what's funny about that quote? It's not from Henry James. It's from Lucio Fulci.
Yeah, he just made it up.
He made it up.
Still a banger quote.
It is a great quote. I just love that he credits it to someone else that when he just said it himself.
Lucio, you want credit on your own quote? No, just give it to Henry Thomas, or not Henry Thomas, Henry James. Give it to Henry Thomas.
Give it to the kid from E.T.
What, like 5 years before it even came out?
He's gonna be a star someday.
Throw him under the bus. All right, cool. Well, that was fun. Yeah. Did those movies make sense? No, but we had fun talking about them.
Oh, they were great. Yeah.
All right,
I'm sure some of your listeners are going to be like, "It went over your head, guys."
Yeah. You don't get it. You guys don't understand.
That's okay. Enlighten us then.
Yeah.
Leave comments, reviews, give us 5 stars. Just, you can be as mean as you want as long as you leave the 5-star reviews. We've said it before. We'll say it again. All right. So do we want to move into some screaming mad news?
Let's do it.
Which is more like screaming sad news tonight.
For both of these.
Yeah. Roger Corman, titan of filmmaking, a B-movie king, just a movie king in general. Let's be honest. Like, he's just one of the most prolific filmmakers of all time past. And we're very much fans of Roger Corman. We would be remiss if we didn't at least give some sort of tribute. Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's kind of apt that all three of us are here talking about Corman, because I said this when we did a podcast together on a Roger Corman movie. We were on Tad's podcast and we talked about The Pit and the Pendulum, the Vincent Price Poe adaptation. That's one of 2 Corman directed movies I've ever seen. but I've seen so many of his producing stuff because again, he produced like 7,000 different movies and started
including my favorite of all time, Chopping Mall.
Including Chopping Mall, one of Sam's OG favorite. And
it's crazy that just like popped up in my Facebook memory. I'm sure it did yours too. Like it dropped almost like the day or two after he passed, like on the anniversary. I was like, holy shit.
Yep. Yeah. Crazy.
It is crazy. But it's just a great career, a great historical figure in the world of cinema. Started so many careers like Scorsese and Jack Nicholson and just so many more people just starting in that Corman factory and just giving a chance to all these filmmakers to make something. And 98 years old, like he was still going till the end. I think he still has a movie he produced that has to come out yet. So
there's a couple. He was supposed to do Little Shop of Horrors Halloween. That was already announced. And when they announced that, I'm like, they know he's 98, right? Like, you lived a crazy, awesome life when you die at 98 and people are like, he had so much more to give. Like, people aren't like, he had a good, 98 years, man. Like people are like, oh, he died too early because he was still doing shit. It's incredible. Like, I mean, Joe Bob did that tribute to Corman at the Jamboree and they showed it a month ago. And I mean, timely, but one of the coolest things ever, just a long form interview with him and his wife. And the guy did more and Joe Bob said it really well. He's like, I've only known him for the last 45 years. And like, I feel like I barely got to know him because the last 45 years compared to what he's done his whole life, it's just like nothing. The guy has just, like you guys said, he just has made so many careers. I love that he wrote like a book. It's like, I've made like 100 movies and never lost a dime, how to make just not even just the business side of it, but, clearly had an eye for talent and just knew the business inside out. And there's never going to be anybody who will ever catch up or even touch what he did. I mean, you literally would have to start out of the womb to even have a chance at getting to what he did. And it's just, the business isn't like it used to be. The closest thing we have is probably, Troma, Uncle Lloyd, like other than him. And that's almost an insult because, not on the same level.
Say you combine probably Lloyd Kaufman and Charles Band and they equal maybe together what Corman did. Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, he has James Gunn, but other than that, he doesn't have a Scorsese. He doesn't have a Nicholson. He doesn't,
right.
And hearing how there's like a video I watched of like Nicholson crying while Corman was alive, talking about Corman and what he meant to him and what he did for him and everything. It's just like, holy shit, man. I mean, people use the word legend too often, but like this was the king, the top of the mountain and incredible.
There will never be another Roger Corman.
Yeah.
Never. Like once in a lifetime. I'm glad that we were around to see part of what he was able to do, and just
crazy. It's a small percentage of what he was able to do too.
Right. Yeah, it's nuts.
Tad, what Corman movies are you guys doing on your next Attack of the Killer podcast?
This episode we're doing is going to be, and actually the first one is directed movies. So we're doing X, the Man with X-Ray Eyes.
Okay.
Creature from the Haunted Sea from 1961 and The Raven from 63. And
dude, I love The Raven.
Yeah. And it's a good variety of them, even though they're like right within 61, 63, and 63 within 2 years of each other. And they're vastly different movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He
also didn't direct much after the 60s though, right?
No, he only did a few others, I think, since he did like Frankenstein Unbound and then something else, but like, didn't do a whole lot of directing after that. I haven't gotten to dig into these yet. I've watched them, but I haven't dug into like the backstories on like if he sort of just directed out of necessity. I mean, he's such a business mogul. He was that I could see him just sort of being like well, it'd be cheaper if I just directed these myself, or
Right.
everything he made was a calculated choice for a reason. So it'd be interesting to see why he went so long just producing. I mean, obviously good at that, and that's where he made his money. So
yeah. All right, Casey,
Well,
you have a second. Huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say R.I.P. to the great Roger Corman.
Yeah,
we'll have to do a Corman episode ourselves just for my sake of catching up on blind spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always looking for an excuse to rewatch House of Usher, which is my personal fave of his directed ones. Those Poe adaptations they did with Price are so good.
Yeah, that'd definitely be probably the ones we would do.
Yeah.
But this next piece of news, I'll jump in here. We have some news that Jason's coming back. Jason Voorhees, everyone, in the Jason universe, the Jason 1v3's verse, the whatever weird way they're spelling this out. Basically, now that the lawsuit has been settled between the rights, this is the Victor Miller group that has the rights for these. This is the same group that me and Sam talked about last time that canned Brian Fuller from doing the Crystal Lake TV show. They're now pretty much like 2 days after they announced that, saying, hey, Jason's coming back in video games and comic books and TV shows, and it's going to be
and action figures and merchandise. All those things that we already have.
Yeah, the stuff we're already doing, but it's coming back again. Guess what's not coming back? A movie. So
I'll take a short film at this point. Good God.
The interesting thing about this is like we said, all this stuff is already happening. We're getting merchandise all the time and action figures. Like that hasn't stopped even with the lawsuit. The video game did because of the lawsuit, but sounds like they're introducing him into other stuff already. Like he's in some Warner Brothers game, I think.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Jason Voorhees as a character in that. A TV show is still going to happen, I guess, at some point. Not the Brian Fuller one. But the funny thing is, like, they don't have the rights to make a Jason movie. And so that's just not going to happen in this Jason universe.
Not until they learn to work with each other, and no one will ever do that.
No.
And that's why I wonder if that's what the weird spelling on the the weird name of this thing is, like they have to get around certain rights, so they're like riding the line of, because I think it's I don't know all the details. I know someone owns Friday the 13th, someone owns Jason. They're different people. One of them owns the story, one owns it's like it's all fucked up, and you can only use certain characters and certain iterations, so nobody can just have the whole pie. They have to split the whole thing. Shelley from Part 3 actually is a lawyer, and on his Twitter he explains it very well in like a series of tweets. So if I don't even know the actor's real name, I should, but he's on there.
It's like Larry something, right? Larry
Zerner. Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yep.
And he's on. It's fascinating to think that Shelley from Part 3 is the one, as a lawyer making sense of this stuff. But he explained like what he's like, disclaimer, I don't know this, but this is what I'm gathering from his, educated guesses on what's really going on. And it's basically like these two sides can't get along, so they're each trying to make their dollar out of what they can make. So we're going to have a bunch of weird 13th stuff without Jason, and we're going to see Jason stuff without the Friday 13th name. And I mean, it's like when New Line bought the rights and they had to make Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X, they couldn't use Friday the 13th in that series of words. That's why we got those weird. And it's like, it reminds me of like Child's Play, and then we turn to Chucky, and people forget that even the first movie wasn't just called Chucky, but it's just, it's like Sam said, I love the toy. I'm sitting right next to like 3 different Jason toys in this room, but I want a goddamn movie, and it's a gold mine. Like get together and figure it out, because it's like printing money. It's been so long, you guys can split it 50-50 and you're still going to be rich as shit. Like, just get it done, guys.
Yeah. It's insane. And as like Friday the 13th is just, for me, it's my favorite of the big 3 as far as the whole series goes. And I'm like, I'd take 10 more mediocre Friday the 13th before I took another Halloween trilogy or even another Freddy movie. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if you brought Robert Englund back, I might take that. But like this is like the franchise where I'm like, you could just keep making these. Like it's basically like printing money.
Yeah.
Like there is such a built-in fan base. Jason is still as prolific as he was in the 80s. Like everybody still knows Jason Voorhees. You see a hockey mask and you don't think hockey anymore. You literally think Jason.
People still call Michael Myers Jason. I mean,
right.
He's such a household name that anybody in a mask on Halloween, they're like, oh, it's Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I just, but what do you do?
They fumble. I mean, how they have continuously fumbled the bag with this franchise. They did Freddy vs. Jason, and it did amazing. Ripped open the box office. Did fantastic. How they didn't do a Freddy vs. Jason sequel? They waited forever, and then did remakes of both of them. And even the Friday 13th reboot did awesome at the box office. They're like,
yeah,
it wasn't like, I mean, A Nightmare on Elm Street, that bombed, that sucked. I can get why that franchise had a hard death. Friday 13th fans loved it. The general public loved it. It did well at the box office, and then nothing at all. Like,
yeah,
that was you had the path right for a brand new franchise. Keep going, and you just stop, and it's just wild. It's just sitting there, and there's no signs of it. Another movie.
Yeah.
This is the longest the franchise has gone without a new movie since it started, and that's insane to think about. Is like we've now gone 15 years since the last Friday the 13th movie, and it's like it's not like it takes 3 years to make a Friday the 13th movie. You bring a bunch of camp counselors
3 months
to Crystal Lake, and you have a hockey mask killer, kill them all off. Like it's not that hard to do.
I mean, Amy Steele's still around. Do a legacy sequel, god damn it! I want Ginny back.
Yeah,
she was supposed to be in the Camp Crystal Lake, right?
Yeah. I think they announced her. They had Adrian King.
Yep.
From the first one. Like, are they gonna still be in it now that Fuller's exited? I have no idea.
I don't think they have any idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I think A24 got cold feet and they were like, "No, we're not doing this."
I had heard from some sources that it was like a budgetary thing, sort of like when Fuller did the Munsters, where he was like, he had this huge vision, which you guys have seen the weird like Mockingbird Lane.
The pilot thing,
which I loved, but it was like, very, very huge. Like Brian Fuller, I mean, we all have seen Hannibal. It's beautiful, but it was not cheap. And that's why that show didn't continue.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hope it's not A24 because I love A24 and I don't want to hate them. But like, if somebody pulled the plug because they couldn't and we were hearing even rumors of like certain episodes that Kevin Williamson wrote an episode about like a whole chase. That whole episode was a chase.
Yeah.
Jason chasing somebody. I'm like, fuck, that would be so cool. Like,
right.
I almost wish they didn't tell us that. Like, don't fucking tell me what.
Yeah, don't tell us what you're not going to give us. Yeah. I
know. Part of me, like, it was like when Mike Flanagan, when Midnight Club got canceled, and he's like, well, here's what we were going to do with season 2. And I'm like, I don't want to read a Tumblr post about what you were going to do with season 2. I just wanted to see season 2,
right. All or nothing.
Sometimes it just makes it worse. Like, I get why people do that. So they're like, oh, hey, this is kind of something like, if you create something, you obviously want to share it with people, but oh man, that one was just, this has been brutal. This has been brutal. It's a good time to be a horror fan, but it's a terrible time to be a Friday the 13th fan.
Well, to officially announce it and get all this information and everything, and for this to happen is just like another pie in the face for that franchise. Like, why can't we get this shit figured out, guys? You're all adults here. Get it figured out. Like,
there was so much buzz around it too. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every studio's like, falsely, I think, stupidly, is like, series is where it's at. We're getting a Halloween series, Miramax. We're going to make a Halloween series. Why? It's a simple formula. Yeah. They all want to do a series. Fine. At least give us that. And then it's like, you can't even get the series off the ground. Like, then give the budget to Fuller and let him do an hour and a half movie. I don't know. Like, what can we somehow compromise A24? Like, does Jason Blum have to come in as like the mediator and be like, guys, let's figure this out? Because it feels like he did that with Halloween. Just sort of was like, we want Jamie Lee Curtis back. Let's figure this out. We don't have the money, but we'll give her percentage. That was sort of how they got Jamie Lee back to Halloween. We don't give you a big old check, but we give you like, a good cut of box office. So you actually give a shit about the movies. How does he have to come in and be like, you two make up, there's money to be made here. Why can't we get this done? Because you're going to be both making way less money not doing it. You can only, how lucrative can the t-shirts and merchandising be for so long,
Right.
Think of all the t-shirts and merchandise you can sell after you have a box office smash,
Yes, you need the movie first.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know I guess it remains to be seen what's going to happen. I think this Friday the Jason universe is just hey, we know you guys heard the rumors of the Crystal Lake series getting canceled. Here's our response to that.
Yeah, forget about that, guys. You're getting like a weird Jason playing card set or some stupid shit. Spencer's Gifts is going to be full of really cool Jason merchandise.
It's like, it already was. Like, what are you giving us new? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah. So anyways,
right, Sam
got us riled up now.
That's all. That's screaming mad news. Now that we're nice and pissed off, what have you guys been doing lately?
Nothing. Yelling about the Friday the 13th franchise.
Casey, I know you only have one thing. You wanna kick us off?
I got one thing. I finally watched the Shudder original film Infested. I was excited to watch it just because the director Sebastian Vanacek is set to make a new Evil Dead movie because of this, which is super cool. Having watched this movie now, I thought the movie was okay. I know it's his feature directorial debut. I thought it was a perfectly fine feature debut. It gets a little repetitive with the spider, like the spider gags throughout it. It just kind of becomes the same thing, especially in the second half of the movie.
Needed some bats.
It needed some bats. It definitely needed a giant fake bat in this movie. It didn't give us any. It gave us a bunch of giant fake spiders, though. But watching it, I was like, I see why Raimi and crew are like, this guy should do a Evil Dead movie. Because it just feels like you take out these spiders and you put in Deadites, and it's an Evil Dead movie.
Well, you sold me on that, so
hell yeah, I'm excited. I was trying to get this watched before this episode so I could talk about it, but that just did not happen. But I'm excited to check this one out.
It didn't blow my socks off, but it was enough to be like, I want to see what this guy does with Evil Dead.
Sweet.
But that's it. That's all I've done in the last
all right. Well, Tad, what have you done?
I've actually, outside of the Corman movies for the podcast, I mean, I watched Fulci for Fake, which is really cool. I talked too much about it on this episode, but it's a cool concept because it starts as like this guy, and he narrates it, and he's like, I was hired to play Lucio Fulci in a movie. And he has like a beard and a mustache, and he's like, I don't know much about him, so I'm going to go talk to his daughter to learn more about him. And then like, they don't really explain what he was playing Fulci in. But that's the idea, is like, he's supposed to be getting into character and interviewing his daughters and his people he worked with and people who knew him. And it's an interesting way to like go about a documentary. I remember when it came out in, I think 2019 I think so, but it was like doing the festival circus, and people talking about like, this guy plays Fulci, and I'm like, well, this is weird. And it still doesn't really, but I guess that's fitting for Fulci. Like, nothing can make sense. Even the documentary about him can't just be straightforward about him. It's like mostly talking to his poor daughter, who, like I said, she was really into horses and hurt herself. And there is a really sad scene. I'm not going to try to spoil the whole movie, but it's like, there's a point where he brought her one of his scripts and wanted her to direct it, and she said she wasn't quite ready, and she said she's regretted that for her entire life, because she really wanted to like direct a movie of her dad's before he passed, and then he got sick and ended up dying, and she never got to do it. But her story is almost, is tragic in itself. Even though she's still alive, she's just like, she's paralyzed and in really bad shape. And but that movie's really fascinating for someone I knew almost nothing about. And then outside of that, in the Corman stuff, The Man with X-Ray Eyes, that was a first time watch for me. That's really cool. I don't know if you guys have seen it, the Corman.
I have not.
It's like beautiful Technicolor. It's weird going from like the monster of the sea or whatever. I don't even know but that one's like black and white, no budget, man in a rubber suit, and then that Man with X-Ray Eyes is really cool. It's almost like feels very Hitchcockian, like it's very well shot and acted, and even has gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was like the king of roasts before Jeff Ross. He was like the best insult comedian back in the day, but he's in it and he plays like a barker. He plays like a circus barker, and it's awesome. That has been my favorite of the three. Really well done. So check that one out. I would recommend The Man with X-Ray Eyes.
It wasn't Triumph, the insult comic dog.
No, I have to.
He was also a barker, though.
Yeah, there you go. Good one. I have to like look it up, King of the Insults now, because
he's a dog, Sam.
Oh,
Don Rickles. The first thing that popped up. Don Rickles is in it.
Oh yeah,
is in it really?
Yeah, and that surprised me. He's in the opening credits, like he's top billed, and then he plays a very small part, but he basically plays himself at like a carnival where he just insults everyone in the audience. But yeah, it was really cool. It had like James Bond vibes. It had some Hitchcock vibes. Like I was pretty out of the three. That one really impressed me.
Nice. Yeah, definitely going to put that on the watch list, especially since there will be a podcast episode out on it soon. That rules.
All right, Sam, what about you? What have you been doing?
I rewatched A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah.
Not my favorite, but has some of my favorite deaths in it. Rennie Harlan directs the shit out of it. Wish it was a slightly better story, but yeah, I rewatched this because Halloween-a-Palooza is bringing a few of the stars from this one in, and yeah, very, very excited. This one, like Nightmare on Elm Street 4 has maybe I know you think she's the best final girl in the series. I'm still a Heather Langenkamp stan, so I don't know. I love the cast of characters in this. The kill set pieces are incredible. Yeah. I also kind of watched this.
Most of the kill set pieces.
Yeah, okay, most of the kill set pieces. But I don't know. Like, I'm kind of excited for I watched this because I'm excited for the new Strangers, the Rennie Harlan one, which I've heard isn't very good, but I'm still very excited for it anyways because it's Rennie Harlan back in horror. So I'm gonna be excited for it. So yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and like incredibly shot, incredibly just impeccably made. I liked it. First time watch, I watched Graduation Day. This is an 80s slasher that is perfectly fine. It's a little strange. The final girl kind of disappears for the second act and then comes back for the third one. It meanders a lot. I kind of compared it to Dazed and Confused meets Halloween, but not at like the quality of either of those movies.
I was gonna say that sounds like the best movie ever, but
yeah, it's not their quality wise, but yeah, it's kind of a high school hangout movie. A girl dies of a heart attack at a track meet while she's running a race.
She probably got the COVID shot, right?
Right. So like a month later, or like a couple months later, everybody's graduating. It's graduation day week. And someone's killing off all the track people, and by the end of the movie,
they'd be able to run away.
You would think, but
there's a
really funny gag with like like the killer has a stopwatch always that he pulls out, and like there are just shots of this hand holding a stopwatch throughout all of the kill sequences.
Does it have a black leather glove?
It has, well, yeah, I think so. Black leather. Yeah, might. It is gloved, but I don't know if it's black leather.
It has to have a glove on it. That way, it's the
the killer.
The killer.
Yeah. So he runs around in like a tracksuit and a fencing mask, or not even a tracksuit, just like gray sweats and a fencing mask. Like that's the look of this killer. And there's one chase scene halfway through the movie where through the fencing mask, you can clearly see who the killer is, and it is the actor playing the character that is later revealed as the killer. It's kind of hilarious. I caught it right away. I'm like, oh, it's that guy. And I thought there was going to be some twist, but then they just never do anything with it. And at the end of the movie, the killer is unmasked, and it's like, oh, okay. I was right a half an hour ago. So, but no, I had a blast with this. It was fun.
What prompted you to watch it?
I got the poster from Halloween-a-Palooza at the silent auction. I'd never seen the movie before, but no one had bid on that one yet. And I was like, well, I'm gonna jumpstart a bid. And so I bid on it, and then I won it.
With it.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I have this poster. I need to watch this movie. And so I finally watched it, and I actually had a blast with it.
Isn't Linnea Quigley in that one too?
She is. She's really funny in it too.
I'd say if it was made between like 1981 and 86, then yeah, she was probably in it.
She's in Nightmare on Elm. She's in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So yeah, that's
yeah, she is. I did. It was the Linnea Quigley double feature actually.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Speaking of, Christopher George plays the evil track coach in this. Also in City of the Living Dead. I watched those two movies on the same day, and I was like, oh my God, I accidentally did a Christopher George double feature. It was kind of cool.
You're the only person in history that's ever done that.
Yep, probably.
I think they are showing Graduation Day Friday on Joe Bob.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, if it like, I think you guys are gonna dig it. It's fun. I didn't realize they were gonna do that. That would.
Yeah, he's teasing like a school themed movie, right?
Okay.
And I think Darcy was on a podcast and spilled the beans that they're doing it this season at some point. That and Donnie Darko are the two that she's revealed they're doing. So.
Oh, okay. Well, Graduation Day is a great Joe Bob one. I can't wait to see what he does with that one. Yeah, I had a ton of fun with this one. Speaking of Joe Bob, I did watch the Roger Corman Jamboree, or the Roger Corman episode, the first part. Anyways, I did not go into the second part where they played Deathstalker, but I watched A Bucket of Blood for the first time. Holy crap, is that movie hilarious? Like, yeah. I loved it. Yeah, Dick Miller's so funny in it. I wasn't expecting it to be like, I don't even know if I'd consider it like horror. It's more of just like dark comedy. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you listen to this podcast regularly, you know, like that's kind of where I thrive anyways. I love dark comedy. So yeah, this movie was a blast. I'll definitely be watching it again. The Roger Corman interview segments were just incredible. Him and his wife Julie, I don't know, they seemed so sweet together, and so well spoken, and just, I don't know, like a lovely couple. And you wouldn't expect them to make movies like A Bucket of Blood or Chopping Mall, but there they are, you know.
Yeah, Bucket of Blood is wild just because like the time it came out and the idea of like he's murdering these people for art pieces. And yeah, it is hilarious. And you don't like cats being killed, but like, the way a cat dies in that movie is hilarious.
It's so funny. And that stuff usually like gets me. I'm like, oh no, they can't kill. But like the way they do it, it's a little bit like when he played the Toxic Avenger a few weeks ago, and like they blow the dog away.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, it's so over the top and comical that it's like, okay, like it's kind of funny. Yeah. I loved A Bucket of Blood. I kind of want to track down. Actually, I probably have a physical copy somewhere on one of my many like 10 horror movies not to watch alone box sets.
Yep.
So
Public domain stuff.
Yep. I just have to check and see if I have a physical copy, and if I don't, I'm tracking one down immediately. Because I really dug Bucket of Blood. And then I don't know, for my last thing, I already made a couple of TikToks about this, but I feel like I should talk about it on the podcast because I feel like a real dumbass. So I've been rearranging my media room, as you can see from my background, which I don't even have lit because, like I said, brain doesn't work.
You can't see it now. There we go.
Look at that. I got all my cool stuff. I got my Jason lamp over my shoulder. And I was looking through my Fangorias, and I found this. And Maria asked me, "Hey, who signed that?" And I was like, "Someone signed it." And I looked, and for the first time, I saw a signature on this. So I subscribed to Fangoria when this issue came out because I wanted this cover. And then a few months later, I got sent this cover again. And I just assumed that I had accidentally ordered two because that's how like we've all done it. So I was like, I ordered a duplicate. That's fine. I put it on my shelf. I forgot, like I'd already read the other copy that I'd received earlier. So I put it on my shelf and I forgot about it for about 4 years. And I'm rearranging, and Maria notices that there's a signature. And then she opens the front cover, and a slip of paper comes out that explains that I have won a Fangoria prize. And please post a picture tagging Fangoria and using these hashtags. And I was like, oh, I did not do that. And I had no idea who signed it. I was just like, okay, I guess this is Casey through his brilliant internet sleuthing, aka he just searched the Fangoria socials, which I was not smart enough to do. Did the most basic of searches. Yeah. I was not smart enough to do this. Found out that not only was the signature Michael Kennedy's, the screenwriter from Freaky, but and one of my favorite screenwriters working in horror right now, but also that you had to sign up specifically to win this. Like it was a sign up form that apparently I filled out and then completely forgot I filled out. I won it and had it just sitting on my shelf for 4 years.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah. Thanks. Better late than never, right? So I'm going frame shopping later this week for this, and I'm really, I don't know, it's kind of a cool surprise. But I felt like a complete and total space cadet, which I am. Casey runs a podcast with me, he knows. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I'm gonna use that as our transition to our final segment, our plugs for the show, because it's just a perfect one. If you wanna subscribe to Fangoria and forget that you subscribe to Fangoria, you use our affiliate link. You can go to shop.fangoria.com/screens from the basement. Use discount code Screens from the Basement so you can get a copy of Freaky signed by Michael Kennedy and forget about it until 4 years later, just like Sam did. Please use all those links. Again, pretty easy to find. Sam, where else can the people follow what we're doing online? Where can they find this podcast?
Well, you can find this podcast pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. The big two, Apple, Spotify. We post our videos on YouTube, so you can watch it there if you would rather have a video component. And you can follow us on socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're posting on all of those pretty regularly. So, join the conversation, comment, let us know. What do you want us to talk about? Who do you want us to bring on as guests? Maybe more Attack of the Killer podcasters? Do we want to see Tad again? Yeah.
Bring on Brian. Yeah. Bring on Brian so he can give you a history lesson on something. Guy.
I am pretty sure I have. Does he have a novelization of Beast at Haunted Cove? Yeah,
he does.
I own that novelization. It is on one of the shelves behind me.
I was going to say, we talked to him at Halloween-a-Palooza. I remember you buying a book from him.
Yep, he had a table. Yep.
Okay. Yep, I was about to say the name sounded familiar, and I've seen him in the pictures, and I'm like, he looks familiar. I wonder if it's the same guy. So that makes sense. Yeah, I bought one of his Beast from Haunted Cove novels at Halloween-a-Palooza. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool stuff. I also found a Young Frankenstein novelization at his table that I picked up.
Nice.
Yeah.
I picked up some stuff from his table too.
Did you?
Yep.
The novelization of Young Frankenstein is weird. The putting on the Ritz scene does not play well in print.
Well, I got the cool hardcover book that's like the making of the movie. It's like the history, visual history. So, someone gave that to me as a birthday gift. I'm like, that's a damn good gift.
That's awesome.
That is. Oh my God. That's awesome.
Well, if people want to send you some birthday gifts, I don't know when your birthday is, but if they want to send them to you, where can they find you online, Tad?
Well, Attack the Killer podcast is on the same channels you guys are. We're all on the PFPN. It's on Spotify, Apple. It's everywhere. We actually upload our episodes to YouTube also, and then they like silence some because we put trailers or certain things on there. But Mike runs our TikTok. I don't want to say I recommend it, but no, I'm just joking. Mike has fun over there. I'm not sure if he knows what he's doing, but he's having fun with it.
We don't know if we know what we're doing either.
And then we'll have here in a few months the Snake Alley Festival films coming up in July, and we just announced the film lineups. We have a few more fun announcements coming up as far as schedule and stuff like that, and getting full on into that planning mode. And
I saw you guys are playing Max Hofer's new shorts. He's a friend of the show.
Yeah.
So I was pretty excited to see that pop up.
Yeah, his is the one, Charlie, about the dog walking. I don't know if you watched that.
Yeah, the missing dog. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Max is good people. I was really glad to see that he was playing at SNAF this year. That was cool. So.
All right. Well, that's awesome. It.
Yeah.
That's it, Sam. We did it.
We did it. Tad, thank you so much for being on the show. This was awesome. It's always a pleasure.
Always fun to be talking with you guys, horror movies. I'll drop everything anytime you guys ask. I love doing it. And
hell yeah.
Any excuse to watch more Fulci is always fun.
Yeah. Help us fill in blind spots. I'm ready. Just don't make me watch the New York Ripper again.
We'll leave that one out. Let's
do a Fulci like romance rom-com episode.
We should. That would actually be fun. Awesome.
We'll just call that one Romance from the Basement for one episode.
Yeah, Romance from the
Basement. What if his like romance movies have like eye plucks and brains and stuff too? Just,
would both surprise me and also just not.
Yeah, would not surprise me. Yeah. All right. Well, Tad, thank you again. This has been awesome. Sam, give us that sign off, and then we're going to hear a little message from our friends at the PFPN.
All right, everybody. Be good people to each other. Thanks for tuning in, and sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.